We're with Rebecca Downes. Rebecca, hello.
Hello.
Great news. We have a new album called More Sinner Than Saint coming out on the 24th of May through Mad Hat Records.
Yep.
So this is your third album.
Third album.
A rocky album. So tell us about the gestation and the release of this.
Okay, well, I mean, I think for me and Steve, who write songs, it's almost like the first album for us in a way, because even though we didn't sort of specifically say, right, we're going to write a rock album now, it just automatically went in a darker and heavier route than the others had taken. So, but for us, we feel like we've kind of reached a pinnacle of where we were trying to get. So for us, it kind of feels it's the third album, but it feels like the first, definitely.
And you had a very important music industry figure, Chris Kimsey, who helped early on. What was his role?
He was kind of, well, he had kind of many roles, I suppose, you know, officially arranger, but for me and Steve, almost like confidence giver, because we were going in a different direction, and one of the tracks especially has been around for about 4 or 5 years, but didn't have the other songs around it to be released. So for us, it was kind of like saying, yeah, these songs are, you know, they're who you are. I think for me, it was kind of like, well, what genre is this? And he said, forget about genres. You know, your identity is your voice. So for us, I think it was a case of he gave us confidence as well as kind of helping arrange.
And if I get this right, previously he'd done a radio remix of Standing on a Pool of Tears.
Yeah, we had, yeah. Which just turned out fabulously. And we would love to at some point record an album with him. He's such an amazing guy.
And the album's out on the 24th, but you already have 2 songs, I think, that you pre-released or previewed with associated videos as well. Tell us about those.
Yeah. Well, the first one to come out was If I Go to Sleep, which has got a solo one from my good friend Alan Nimmo from King, which we were both, you know, overwhelmed with. It's such an amazing solo. And now Steve's trying to replicate that live, bless him.
No pressure.
No pressure whatsoever. And then now we've got the next single, Hurts, which has just come out, and just the video's just dropped out for that. So, and that's kind of one of the more heavier tracks on the album.
And one of the other guests, and I'm going to explore this a little bit, you've got Tony Clarkin on Breathe Out.
We did, yeah.
So you've got a little bit of a Magnum connection going on. Mad Hat Records, let me guess, is something to do with the Mad Hat Studios.
Yeah, it is, yeah. So we've recorded all our work with Mark and Sheena at Mad Hat, and Mark's been a big part of what I've done right from the start. So we know Magnum obviously from going in the studio, and then we were on tour with them last year. So I kind of, cheekily asked if he'd put a solo on there. And again, you know, if you don't ask, you don't get. And he said yes. So I was like, so we gave him the longest solo on the album, because I just thought, and Steve thought, that with his background and the whole prog thing as well, he would fit that song, and he's done a superb job. Couldn't be happier.
And if I'm right, the earlier albums brought out were produced by Mark Stewart.
Sure, yeah.
But you've got 2 very special guys that were brought in to do remixes for the final version of the album.
Yeah, we've got Bill Drescher in LA, who I met when I was in LA at his home, surrounded by, you know, the walls covered in gold discs, and, you know, lovely guy. And he was the first to get his hands on to mix anything. He kind of immediately knew what we wanted, you know, quite amazingly so. We barely went back with any changes whatsoever. He just got it. We got those tracks mixed because we've got an American management, and they were, you know, taking those tracks around. Unfortunately, because Bill is so busy, you know, doing film scores, you know, and everyone else's album, we needed somebody else to mix the rest of the album in the end. And then Chris Childs from Thunder was put onto us from our co-manager, advisor Danny Bowes, and he's done a fantastic job of like mixing the other tracks on the album. And they all, from even the feedback we've got has been, wow, they all sit together really well. They don't jump out as being mixed by, this is mixed by Bill or this is mixed by Chris. They all seem to fit. So I think it's kind of worked out for the best in a roundabout way.
So do you think that now this album is really representative of Rebecca? So when you came back into the industry with your debut EP in 2013, was this the direction you wanted to go to, or is this now representative? They really captured your voice?
This is it. This is it for me and Steve, and my voice especially on this. I had to sort of sometimes, not fall out with people, but kind of probably be a bit more bullish than I have been in the past and say, no, this is how I want to record this is how I want my voice to sound, this is how I want to do things, where in the past maybe I've been sort of a little bit more polite about it, but then I knew exactly where I wanted to go with this album. But for me, going back to, the bands I was in when I was a young kid, these are, this is going straight back to that, the darkness, the more heavier guitars, and the stuff that me and Steve are writing now along exactly the same vein.
So as I say, going back to your childhood, you were raised by wolves, or in Wolverhampton, right?
I was indeed, yeah.
So with the, great heavy rock background, all the bands that came from there, the Glenn Hugheses, the Trapezes, all those.
Yeah.
So did that kind of influence your music taste earlier on?
Absolutely. And I remember as well, rock wasn't, I was heavily into bands like Soundgarden and people like that. Wasn't massively into a lot of the grunge, but I was into bands like that. But I was also, as you say, listening to bands like Trapeze and some really, the real foundations of rock, which actually at the time when grunge was there, weren't that, that cool to listen to. They've kind of had a big resurgence now. But yeah, that's kind of, apart from what my parents were playing, that was exactly what I was listening to.
And from what I can see, the key milestone was when you crossed the national border, the frontier, into Birmingham from Wolverhampton. Was that because you were seeking a new frontier, or what was the impetus for you moving into Birmingham?
Well, the impetus basically was I gave up everything. I gave up a job at the time. I was engaged to be married at the time. I gave up that. I sold my house. I decided it was, I wanted to be closer to my songwriting partner and to throw myself wholeheartedly into what we were doing. So that was kind of like me saying, this is it, no more ties, this is the way I want to go. So it was kind of, and Birmingham is my adopted home. It really is. I know people probably think, oh, they're similar, but they kind of are and they're kind of not, but it's definitely my adopted home.
And am I right that your songwriting partner and live guitarist, Steve Burkett, he's from Birmingham?
Yeah, he is, born and bred. So, yeah, he's moved up a bit. He's in Solihull now, but he's...
Oh, very posh, heading west.
Just a tiny bit.
He'll be in the Ardens next, you watch him. So in terms of the approach to your songwriting with Steve, did you take a deliberate approach to move away kind of from the blues style of the new album, or was it more in the arrangements after you'd written the songs?
To be honest, we write sometimes completely together, sometimes we write apart. Well, how I always write is pretty much either just straight on a piano or straight on an acoustic guitar. It's never got any effects on it or anything like that, so they're always just the roots of the songs. But the songs automatically were darker and required different instrumentation than they had done previously. So it was just natural. For Steve as well, he writes with more effects than I do. He goes into the effects straight away and he demos everything very highly. So he was just straight away going heavier, but it was just a natural movement, really.
And if we look forward to the release of the album, it looks like the launch event you're going back to Wolverhampton to Vinyl and Vintage.
Yeah. Well, we thought it'd be nice to like do something like that, not do a gig, full-on gig so much. We weren't really going to do anything, and then Cargo Records suggested that we do that, and I thought, well, great idea. You know, obviously Thunder do their old record store thing as well, so I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be bizarre. Even my godson's coming, so he's like about 7 years old, so it's going to be awesome.
Has he seen you play before or sing before?
No, because of the age restrictions, so this is his first time. Although he plays me all the time on Spotify, God bless him.
And looking through the reviews and comments on Rebecca, the two things that sort of stood out and resonated were powerful and original. Do you think that's fair?
I'll go with that. Yeah, I'll take that every day of the week. Sure. I think, you know, original. We've kind of, you know, you're always struggling with because you think, well, should we be writing stuff that sounds like so and so, or you know, and you kind of, and I think that's where Chris Kimsey came in and went, no, these are great songs, don't worry about that. Powerful, I guess, you know, vocally, you know, I'm also a vocal coach, have been for years, and I'm sort of obsessed with vocals and the whole biology behind vocals. So for me, yeah, I've been vocal training myself since I was, you know, yay high, so it's just basically, you know, I like to improve as much as possible, so got to keep getting bigger, better, you know, more control.
And I think the first time I saw you play was at Blues Week when you were supporting the Climax Blues Band. Great set, and that was obviously, I think that was around the time of the Believe album, most likely.
Yeah.
And I think you've got kind of a history of including selectors' cover songs.
Yeah.
How do you go about choosing the cover songs that you include? Because you've done Beatles, you've done Led Zeppelin, Janis Joplin,
Etta James.
Yeah.
For us, it was kind of like just songs that we loved and enjoyed. You know?
Okay, so if we then look at the bands that you've gone out to play live with in terms of support bands, I mean it covers everything from the Choir Boys to King. Are these the people you met along the way and you have personal relationships with, or was it just luck that you ended up playing with them?
I mean, some of them we got personal relationships with. Obviously Magnum, Climax, I know, you know, their rhythm section, you know, keyboard player. The Choir Boys we didn't have a connection with, apart from I was a massive fan. And then, you know, you go out and see them, and they've turned out to be the nicest bunch of lads in the world, so I can't wait to gig with them again. But it all comes from just different aspects, really, you know. One is never the same as the next one, so... And luckily they've all been lovely.
And I'll come back to the Magnum connection, because certainly through your association with Mad Hat in the studio, and knowing Tony, you've supported them on the number of tours. I was going to mention that you've ended up on this album, Live at Symphony Hall.
Live at Symphony Hall.
And I think you come on during the encore also on Without Love.
I do, yeah.
So what was that like playing at the Symphony Hall?
It was, you know what, I thought I was going to be really nervous, because, you know, I normally am before gigs, but we'd done the tour with them and the feedback had been so great that we just sort of, I took to the stage at the Symphony Hall and just thought, this is the best night of my life so far, and it was fabulous.
And I guess indirectly, whether I'm just reading into this, no, you almost responsible for Rick Benton joining Magnum, because he was in your band before he was in Magnum.
He was, yeah, so, you know, my band is kind of, again, you know, there's different sorts of people, you know, playing with us, and different sorts of people coming and going. I was only too happy to see him go on and join Magnum, and he's doing a fine job.
He certainly is. And with him doing that job, is he still able to play with you most of the time when you're touring?
Yeah, I mean, he plays with us a lot of the time. He's also got other business that he deals with as well. So we've got about three keyboard players that we sort of rotate. And they're all fab.
So, with the album coming out, tell us about your forward plans in terms of touring. I know you've got some Choir Boys dates coming up. Any other sort of full solo dates when you can perform more of the new album?
Yeah, we've got one this weekend in Yorkshire. We've got some coming up in Stockton. We've got more tour dates and support tour dates coming all the time, so the website's constantly being updated.
Yeah.
So there'll be a lot of things to come. We've got a few festivals, quite a few festivals lined up, and we're desperate to be playing most of the new stuff, so we'll be shoehorning it all in, I'm sure.
And I think after Believe came out the year after, you had Be Live, the live album. So some point in the future, will there be a kind of a DVD so people aren't able to come to the shows, experience your latest set?
We've been asked for that a few times, so hopefully, yeah. I'd love to do that. As long as they can, polish me and make me look all right, yeah. I'll go with that.
Yes, I think that the best way of experiencing you is when you have your own headline set. I think you did Pizza Express in Dean Street recently, where you had a full 2-set performance where you're able to cover a couple of the songs off the new album, but then going back to some covers and then stuff off Believe and even before that.
I mean, we love doing the acoustic sets as well. We've been asked for acoustic albums, so we're sort of thinking about that for the future, but we absolutely love doing the acoustic sets because, as I say, that's how most of the songs actually came about in the first place, so it takes them right back to the start.
That's great, Greg. It's been an absolute thrill talking to you. We're looking forward to seeing you when you either in the support dates you've got coming up, because I know you're playing with Brian Downey later in the year.
We are, yeah, down in good old London.
Yeah, so and then if you've got a full solo show, we'll be sure to come to that.
Love to see you.
And to remind everyone, the album More Silver Than Saint is out on Mad Hat on the 24th of May. Thank you, Rebecca.
No
Cheers.
problem, thank you.